Hello, everybody. Welcome to Townsend 505. My name's Nick. Joining me always on the right is Bryer from Bryer's Music Showcase. Today, we continue with our Black Sabbath series. We've been going on at this for so long now, it feels. Uh,
Mhm.
Episode 17, crazy, right? Um,
I know.
but the album in question is Cross Purposes, the first album of the return of Tony Martin. Uh, I don't have to ask you this, but ready to give your background info?
Yep, as always. Okay, so like you just said, this is where we have Tony Martin returning yet again on lead vocals. So, how did that happen? Well, after Dehumanizer did pretty well, of course they went out and toured it and it did pretty well. But then everything went down very fast when Tony Iommi agreed to open for Ozzy. And when Ronnie found out, he did not want to open for Ozzy at all, because apparently there's been like some beef between those two for a while, and also he was kind of didn't want to start up the whole Ozzy versus Ronnie comparison sort of thing, so he just did not want to be involved in it. And so all that bad blood that they had prior just kind of came creeping back. And so when it was time for that particular show, Ronnie just refused to go out. And the reason, the reason why Tony agreed, and that's something that's always been a big thing with Tony, was that he was always hoping to one day have that big reunion with Ozzy. But and there's been multiple occasions where it could have happened, but it just never really materialized. But Tony was still hoping. He was still hoping, and so he want so t- again. Ryan didn't want to go out, but so they had to quickly find somebody to fill in the gap. And funny enough, as they were able to get one replacement, it was none other than Rob Halford from Judas Priest. And you can actually find somebody actually recorded it. You can actually find some video footage of Rob singing for Black Sabbath, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure he was like the greatest fit, but he was like the best they can get in that short notice. So, yep, that pretty much ended that whole that whole thing. Ronnie ended up quitting not long after, and once Ronnie left, and also Vinny Appice also left the band as well. And what about that reunion of Ozzy? Did that happen? Heck no, of course not. Um, So now they decided to go back and just record an album. And so when they were recording the album, they needed a singer. So who was there waiting in the wings? None other than Tony Martin himself. Which is funny because I watched a video of people going through the history of Black Sabbath, and when it comes to this album, I always hear people refer to Tony Martin as kind of like Tony Iommi's like side chick. Like if he needs a singer, he'll like, okay, Tony Martin, come out, we need you, come back over. um, and so that's how it's been. But yeah, but they did the album, and I'll give briefly on who's in the band now. So you still have Tony Iommi, but you still have Geezer Butler. Geezer Butler stuck around for this album. And then again on drums, their new drummer this time, we have Bobby Rondinelli, who was also a part of Rainbow at some point. I already said Tony Martin, and still we have Jeff Nichols on keyboards. So that is Black Sabbath there. And yep, um, this album did okay, not nearly as good as Dehumanizer. It got 41 in the UK and 122 in the US, so a massive drop here in the States. Um, and yeah, so other than that, when it comes to the album cover, I don't know what are your thoughts on the album cover.
I don't like it at all.
Mm,
I don't like it.
well, you want to know something?
What?
Turns out this is this particular like I don't know, this whatever this angel thing is was actually previously used for a Scorpion singles cover. It was for the single "Send Me an Angel," and the exact same thing. And so I guess I don't know who was in charge of Black Sabbath, but apparently they didn't know that the Scorpions already used it. From my end, I can tell there was no lawsuit or anything, but it's kind of weird coincidence that they used the exact same artwork.
If it was a good album cover, I'd say great minds think alike, but I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of basic. But
um,
other than that, that's the album history.
what are your thoughts?
All right, so my thoughts on it. I dig this album. I think there's some good songs on here, but I will admit there's definitely going to be some songs that I'm going to be like, it's okay. Definitely nothing mind blowing or anything, but it's fine. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of somewhere in. I like it, but it's not definitely not going to be part of the. It's not cream of the crop Black Sabbath in my opinion.
I'm in agreement with you. It's a good album. Um, I still think it's better than Paranoid and Sabotage, but just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's there's still some really good songs on here, but besides like the top four songs on the album, it's okay. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no bad songs on here. It's just okay. Um,
Yeah.
that's basically about it for my brief thoughts. We get to the first track on the album, "Eyewitness."
All right, so let me start off on a pretty decent note. We have a nice, good, fast-paced guitar intro, and the drumming from Bobby Rondinelli is pretty solid. And Tony Martin still sounds great. Sounds like he never left. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say about it. It's just a pretty, sort of run-of-the-mill, sort of heavy rock sort of track. I do like the part where they sing "I Witness." That whole thing that's kind of memorable. But yeah, it's not one of my favorites of their opening tracks, but it starts the album on a decent note. So that's all I gotta say about it.
Yeah, this is pretty good. I think it's a good album opener. I mean, I feel like we could both agree that they don't have a single bad album opener yet.
No, not yet.
None of them are offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that doesn't change.
Well,
We only have
yeah,
three more albums, especially for that supposed forbidden album that's really infamous.
yeah,
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
yeah. We'll get there.
Um, only one. We're like next episode. We're like really close to that album.
Yeah.
Crazy, really close. Yeah, this is a good. This is a good song. It's in my top five. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I like it. This is like one of the four songs I really like on this album. Uh, we get to the next song on the album, which is "Cross of Thorns."
Okay, so this one I personally liked a little bit better than Eyewitness. Did I have this in my top five? Yes, I did. Pretty high actually. Um, so yeah, starts off pretty nicely. I do like the acoustic guitar and some keyboards underneath it. And again, Tony kind of sang the tone with his more softer vocals. And then I do like how it changes into that main guitar riff. It's a pretty good riff. And then it changes back to the slower pace. Um, then it goes. There's another pretty good guitar solo in it. It's kind of one of the more moodier tracks, which I kind of dig those types of songs. But again, there's not a whole lot to say about it. I thought it was really good. That's all I gotta say.
I actually really quite like the song. This is in my top five as well. I
Mm,
really this is a song I really dig. The first one I thought was pretty good, but this one's really good.
hmm
Really great follow up track. Like yeah, I feel Black Sabbath at this point is known for like starting off like having a song on their album that starts off slow but then becomes really heavy.
hmm
I feel like that's
Yeah.
starting to become. I feel like at this point it's a Black Sabbath sort of thing at this point,
Yes.
which
Sort of trope.
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Works really well for them. They haven't done it bad yet. There's a couple songs I think it's okay. Like doesn't always work perfectly, but it works good on this song. So you ain't gonna hear me complain about that.
hmm
Um, That's the third song on the album, which is Psychophobia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So apparently, this was inspired by a pretty infamous cult leader. Um, I forgot which specific cult he formed, but I know it involved a whole standout. The whole building burned down. It was a whole thing. Um, but yeah, eh, this one was okay. This one was not one of my favorites. Again, it's not bad, but it was kind of a bit. Again, it's another one of those like generic sort of run of the mill heavy tracks. Just some usual fare. I mean, it does switches between some kind of switches between a kind of a slower piece, but then it has a more like heavier sound to it. I mean, Tony's vocals, still pretty good. But again, just musically, there just wasn't a whole lot for me to really grab onto. But yeah, it's not bad, but I thought it was okay.
I'm in agreement with you. Actually, I'm not the biggest fan of this song. Like, there's four songs I think are really good. There's three songs I think are like they're like okay, but then there's like three songs I'm like, I'm not sure about, and this is one of the three.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best out of the three, but yeah, after the first and especially the second track, I was very disappointed when I heard this. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. It's not bad. It's just, eh, it's okay. Um, we get to the next song in the album, "Virtual Death."
All right, so it starts on a promising note. I mean, Geezer gets to show off a little bit in the intro on bass, which is pretty cool. And then from then on, it kind of starts to, I don't know, kind of fizzles out immediately. Kind of another one of the more like doom, gloom sort of track where it's very slow, doesn't really change much. It just stays on that exact riff and groove the most of the time. It may speed up a little bit, but not too much. Um, Again, and there's like this weird effect on Tony's vocals. I don't know if that's they put an effect or he's just multi-tracked. But I don't know. It just kind of feels off. Um, Again, I will say, I will say this was probably my least favorite song on the album because again, I just kind of thought it was a little bit kind of boring, honestly. But yeah, it's not horrible, but it's just a song I'll probably have no interest to revisit very often.
Yeah, I'm kind of disagree with you. I think this is a good song. This is
Okay.
one of the songs I just think is just good. I'm
Okay.
not. I'm kind of agreeing with you, but at the same time, I don't. I think I'd like it a tiny bit more than you. Like I like it the
Mhm.
entire way through, but it's not like. But the part I agree with you though is like it's not a song that I'm like I need to go listen to Virtual Death. But
Yeah.
when it's on, I like it. I like it at the. It's one of those songs where I like it at the moments. It's one of those kind of songs. Like there's three songs on this album where it's like I like it for the moments. It's not bad, but it's not really amazing either.
Mhm.
Um, but we get to the next song on the album, "Immaculate Deception."
Okay. We'll see how it goes, but I personally really enjoyed this song. I do like the guitar riff. I think the riff was pretty memorable, pretty catchy. Well, not catchy, but it's memorable. And there's some nice keyboards underneath, giving it a nice atmosphere. And it does start to pick up. Unlike the last song where it stays the same, this one actually goes somewhere, which I appreciate. And you hear some double bass drums from Rondinelli. Pretty cool. And then it goes back into the main riff. And there's a pretty nice guitar solo. But yeah, overall, again, nothing amazing, but no, I enjoyed it. This one actually did make the top five for me. So yeah.
Um, I actually think this is one of those songs I'm not the biggest fan of. This is the
Hmm.
second of three songs where I'm just like, it's
Which is funny
fine.
because that's kind of like how I was the first time I heard the album. I was kind of the same way when it came to this song. At first, I was like, I'm not really feeling it. But when I revisited it again, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to get it.
Okay, maybe it might change, but I don't really
Hmm.
see myself going back to this album too much, especially
Hmm.
since it's not available on iTunes.
Right. Yeah. that said, that box set is coming out. They just released. I think they released more information on this. I think it's coming out in either April or May. I think. So
Okay.
maybe when that box set comes out, maybe that's when they'll finally release. Because I know they released 2 songs on Spotify. They released only 2 songs though. They released Headless Cross, the title track, and also I forgot how to pronounce it, but the opening song to Tear.
Yeah, I know Monday.
Yeah, there you go, on a Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what's the name of the box set? Just curious.
I think it's the same. I had it pulled up. Hold on a sec, because I know it's kind of based around Tier, like so similar to Anu Monday, but I'm not sure if it's the exact. So yeah, I'm just gonna look that up real quick. Give me one sec.
Okay.
Would be interesting though. I know it's not going to include Eternal Idol because that was released on Vertigo and Warner Brothers. Well, this box is only going to include the ones that were on IRS.
Okay.
Um, so there's that. Okay, Anu Domani. So it's
Okay.
ANNODOMINI.
I saw the single that's released on iTunes, but I didn't see the the box set. Like it's not showing that it's coming up yet. So maybe it might not. I have two different compilations. I have the complete studio album, 70 to 78, and I have the Dio years. So
Mm,
who knows?
yeah, but yeah, they're probably going to release everything when it comes out.
Cool. But yeah, this is yeah. Going back to what I was saying, it's just an okay. It's
Mhm.
an end song. Now we get to the second half of the album, "Dying for Love."
All right, now this one I actually do enjoy. It's one of the closest songs that sound like a ballad. Of course, I'm gonna be a sucker for that because it has that keyboard sort of sound to it that kind of reminds me of a ballad. And so yeah, I was getting into it. And you have Tony Iommi providing some pretty good melodic guitar playing, um, just pretty good. And there's some nice bass playing too underneath it. Not crazy bass playing that we know from Geezer, but definitely fits the pocket. And again, Tony sounds really good on here. He definitely has a good voice for these like softer ballad type of things. And I like the second half where it starts to get a bit heavier. It's almost like a power ballad in that sense. And there's a nice guitar solo in here. But yeah, overall, this was like probably definitely one of my favorites on the album.
Um, so this is the third track that I'm not the biggest fan of. I and like the last video, I'm not joking.
Mhm.
Like I said, that one time where I said what I said, that was a one time deal. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm even gonna go as far as say this is my least favorite song on the album.
Mm.
I was not feeling it. Wish I was, but I'm sorry, I wasn't feeling it.
What can I say? I'm a
It's like
sucker for ballads.
that's true. That's true.
Hmm.
I yeah, this is I like a lot of their ballads, but this is just one that didn't really hit me like your others. Like usually when I think of great ballads, I think of like songs like Changes from
Yeah.
but this one's good though. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just okay. Now I get to the next song on the album, Back to Eden.
Okay. So now it's kind of going back to just standard hard rock fare. The riff is decent. Guitar solo is pretty nice. But again, this one just didn't have a whole lot for me to say. It's just kind of it's not, I wouldn't say it's like filler or anything, but it's just like kind of just doesn't really stand out. Kind of blends in almost. But yeah, it's kind of near the bottom, not the bottom, but it's yes, it was decent, but again, just didn't really stand out.
Fair enough. I actually really like this song. So surprisingly, this is so far turned out to be a pretty divisive video.
Yeah.
Songs you think are your favorites is not one of my favorites, and this is one of my favorites. I really like the song. I get where you're coming from though. It's not the worst. It's not really the best either. Like, no, like besides one song on this album, like none of these songs really stand out. Like, for me, that is like it's an album that I enjoyed at the moment, but it's not like an album that I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
venture at. I gave it a nice score, but it's just I'm not. It's not. I'm really gonna be returning to that much. For me, that is. Um, but we get to the next song on the album, "The Hand That Rocks the Cradle."
All right, so this one's another interesting one. So this was actually inspired by by a serial killer who was a nurse and was killing babies. So hence the title. Pretty dark subject matter. Um, but I don't know. I like this song too. This was another standout for me. Um, yeah, it's definitely pretty high for me. Again, this kind of goes back to some great melodic sort of guitar playing from Tony. Sounds really nice, and again, you have the keyboards. That's I that has that sound that I'm a sucker for. But it does switch it up. It does switch it up to a more heavier riff, and the riff is pretty good. I thought it's very memorable. And it's a pretty good drumming. Again, um, this is where the drums kind of stand out a lot more on this track. And again, Tony sounds does a really good job with the lyrics and how he portrays it. Really good job there. And it just kind of plays with that sort of going from that more softer keyboard heavy sound to the more heavier riff. It definitely keeps my attention. So, yeah, this was like this. I thought this was like one of my favorites on here.
I think this is pretty good too. Um, I This is also my top four. This is another one of the four songs I really like. So yeah, this is yeah, like I said, those four for me the four best songs on the album are really good for me. That is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like my top four is really good. My number five is good, and six and seven are good, but seven, eight, nine, 10 are eh. Yeah, it's another good song. I agree with what you said. So I'm glad we could agree on at
Mm-hmm.
least we're agreeing on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's the next song on the album, Cardinal Sin.
All right. So this one has a little funny tidbit was that the original title was supposed to be Sin, Cardinal Sin. But I guess somebody made an error in the printing, so it just says Cardinal Sin. But the band was like, "Yeah, that's okay. We'll adopt that." And so yeah, that's how that name came to be. Um, this one was okay as well. This was another song I was like, yeah, it's fine in the moment, but it's kind of one of those songs. It kind of goes in one ear then out the other. But according to my notes, there was some strings, even though I think they're clearly played on a keyboard. Um, but yeah, those sound okay. The guitar riff is decent. And the bass is a bit more audible here. And that's something that's another thing I'm kind of docking points for this album is that even though Geezer's on here, you really don't really hear him too much. He's kind of just a little bit buried. Every so often you'll hear him, but it's not like what we normally hear him with. But yeah, it speeds up towards the end. But overall, I thought it's solid. But again, not one of my favorites here.
This made my top five, but just barely. Um,
Mm,
Even though it's a top five, doesn't mean it's one of the stronger songs on the album. It just
mm-hmm.
that's how the songs end up ranking. Um, it's fine. I'm kind of with you. It's one of the three okay songs on the album. Um, but we reached the last song on the album, Evil Eye, and I guess I'll go first and say that this is a very okay way of ending the album. Nothing special. This is the last of the okay songs, and for me, I wanted to give this album a 9 out of 10 for the four great songs on the album, but to end off on an okay song like this, it's just, it's okay. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, sort of a similar way. Um, Now this one, I'm kind of the same way with your number five because this song also was my number five, but I kind of have the same feeling with your number five where it's it kind of just barely made it on because to me comparatively it was my favorite of the okay ones. Um, but what's interesting about this song is that apparently Eddie Van Halen was involved in this one. I don't know if he played guitar, but I know he was involved in the writing process. He's not credited because he was with Warner Brothers, and so they were pretty protective of not having Eddie appear on anybody but Warner Brothers. It's kind of similar to when Eddie Van Halen was on Beat It. He was not credited on that either. Um, but yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it kind of makes sense because Tony Iommi and Eddie always got along great because I know Eddie Van Halen opens for Black Sabbath during the Never Say Die tour, I think. So so they were always kind of close. Um, but yeah, it's some nice guitar playing here. It's got a good riff that gets your head moving. And Tony Martin definitely uses his more higher register, which is pretty refreshing because he's pretty much his kind of stayed consistent throughout. So it's nice that he gets to go a little higher this time. And the bass gets a lot heavier. But yeah, it's a solid closing track. But yeah, it's not one of the most. It's definitely not one of their like grand send offs or anything. It's just like it's serviceable. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Evil Eye.
Yeah, um, it's interesting too. It's like it happened in the '62 because Bruce Johnson of the, he would end up being on the Beach Boys, that and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, he was on Columbia Records, and before
Mm.
then, he wasn't allowed to be on Capitol Records, just kind of for that reason. Like he was on the album cover for Summer Days and Summer Nights, but they had to take him out of the cover and use a different photo because of the contract reason. So it kind of goes, yeah, it's kind of weird how the contract things work.
Yeah.
Plays. But what's your top five?
All right. So my top five, I have, like I said before, Evil Eye at number 5. Number 4, Dying for Love. Number 3, Immaculate Deception. And number 2, Cross of Thorns. And number 1, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Cool. We share two songs on our top five.
Okay,
Um,
there we go.
Number 5, Cardinal Sin. Number 4, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Number 2, Eyewitness. Two. I meant 3. Number 2, Back to Eden. Number 1, Cross of Thorns. That's my favorite song
All
on the
right,
album.
that's good.
So
Cool.
really, really good songs on the album. If I'm going to give an honorable mention, it'll be, I guess, Virtual Death, and a dishonorable song will be. I hate to say it's one of your top fives. Dying for Love. That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
dishonorable.
I mean, if I'll do this, if I guess I do the same thing. Like my honorable mention would be Eyewitness. That one came very close to being there. And then my last place was Virtual Death.
Yeah, it's one of my least favorites too. Um, what do you score this album?
All right, so I'm gonna give this a 7.5. As source, it's not. It's kind of somewhere in like the average category. It's not amazing, but it's not bad either. It's serviceable. A lot of the songs here are serviceable. There's some good songs in here, but there's also some songs that are definitely kind of, yeah, just kind of there for the most part. It's not songs you're gonna be remembering very often, and that's what this whole album is to me. Like I won't listen to it very often, but generally, if I'm gonna listen to this one, it's usually gonna be like certain songs. I'm probably not gonna hear the whole album very very often. But again, it's not bad. It's pretty still a decent album. I dig it. It's a 7.5.
I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I want to give this a 9 out of 10 just for the 4 songs, especially my favorite song on the album. But you know, 3 songs are kind of eh. 3 songs are just okay, and the album does not end off on the strongest notes either. It's
Mm.
just with all that added onto it, it drops down to an 8 out of 10 for me. This is they're my third least favorite album from them as of now.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
well, stay tuned, everyone, because the next episode we're going to be reviewing the infamous Forbidden album. Uh, right there, the very, very infamous album that
Yeah, I will say
most,
this is another album cover I'm not huge on.
I hate that album cover.
Yeah,
It reminds me too much of the Dehumanizer album cover with the skeleton guy in the front.
yeah. And also,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's because of this particular CD copy, but it just looks blurry too. Like it's not even a good quality image.
do you have the Dehumanizer album cover with you right now? Put the
So yeah,
put them together. It's kind of the
yeah,
same thing,
they're both cloaked.
and they both have like the thing. I'm like, it's stupid. Man, I don't get
Yeah,
it.
at least this guy is shooting lightning. This guy's just standing there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's not even a good rip off. It's just. Oh,
Yeah,
I don't like that album cover. I really don't.
yeah.
Um, let's hope the music more than makes up for it. Let's hope that. Um,
Okay, we'll see.
hopefully, Martin doesn't end off on a dud. But thank you guys so much for watching this. You have anything else you want to say before we close out?
Well, all I gotta say, like next time, it's either gonna be like a big surprise, or it's just gonna be a whole album roast.
Hopefully, it's the first one.
Yeah, hopefully.
But thank you guys for watching this, and I'll see you guys next time. So long.